Okay, so Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Today we will be doing Surah Fatiha, and then, but before that, we will be doing the short prayer we usually do in 5 salahs. Jessica is with us. We will be recording the session so other students can watch it later as well. Okay, on your screen, you see the small prayer that says Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika and so on. We will read we will read in Arabic, then we will read it in English, and we will read a few things associated with that. So students will try to read everything. If there are new words, we will focus on those, and then Jessica will read the whole thing again. Okay, so let's start with the Shazia. Shazia, do you want to start with the opening dua for the beginning of Salat that's on the screen?
Yes, sir.
So do you want to read the Arabic and English translation? Shazia, we cannot hear you.
Yes, sir. मैंने भी बोल दिया sir. Opening dua for beginning of Salat.
Yeah.
Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika wa tabarakasmuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayruk. Glorious you are, O Allah, and with your praise, and blessed is your name, and exalted is your majesty, and none has the right to be worshipped but you.
Okay, so let's take a pause there. Are there any words here that you guys are struggling with?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So one quick comment that I want to make is the word wow. And let me just grab a empty page, which is used a lot in Quran. It usually means a preposition. And then beyond that, there is the word exalted. It's similar to praised. How would you explain the word exalted, Jessica?
Yeah, it's praised, or it's I think that's a good word for it, actually.
Okay. Yeah, I try to provide a little bit of the English explanation or synonym for my own struggles of learning English. So Jessica, do you want to read this translation, and then we can move on to the bottom?
Sure. Glorious you are, O Allah, and with your praise, and blessed is your name, and exalted is your majesty, and none has the right to be worshipped but you.
Thank you.
By the way, is that a good pace? Because I know you're saying that maybe I should read slow, so it's.
So let me ask them. Shazia और बाकी लोग ये अभी जिस स्पीड से जैसिका ने पढ़ा ये ठीक है?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, very good. और इन लफ्ज़ों में से आपको किसी की समझ ना आई हो?
No, sir. All clear.
Okay, sir.
Okay, good. So one quick thing. The word Jessica used was pace, which is a newer word.
Oh.
And when I was explaining in Urdu, I was like, oh, what would be the equivalent word? So I used the word speed. So, pace, speed, they're almost synonym. Okay. So Shazia, do you want to read the next half of the English and the explanation?
Sure, sir. The beginning dua of Salah was mentioned in a number of different hadiths narration and begins with Subhanakallahumma bihamdika. According to Hanafi and Hanbali madhabs, it is sunan to read this dua when opening your prayer. This dua should be recited immediately after Niyyah, which refers to a Muslim's intention to start the prayer. So, right after the takbir, raising your hand saying Allahu Akbar, you could recite this dua.
Just one second. Let's pause here. Any words up to here?
I noticed some people raise their hands.
Sorry,
I
sir.
raised the hand, sir, by mistake.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no problem.
Okay. So I think the words there were a couple words here that I wanted to say. There's the word. I'll highlight those, and Jessica can say those before reading
Mhm.
these.
Narrations.
Yeah.
I also want to say I noticed something. Sometimes when I hear people, you guys reading, sometimes you guys don't say the S at the end of a word, and or they don't pronounce it as much. And maybe that's something with English or American speakers. Every time there's an S at the end of a word, we usually say it.
Okay. So an example would be what?
Oh, I don't know, just any word that has an S at the end of it. Like I mean, when she was reading it, she did say some of it, but that one I heard her say narration, but it's narrations.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have noticed that too, and I can tell from when I was learning English, a lot of times I think I ran out of gas by the end.
I guess there's just
Yeah,
too
so
many consonants.
Yeah. So, like usually what will happen that by the end of the sentence, I will run out of my confidence or a breath to complete it. So I will drop a few words, and so it's a very good point. But I just wanted to say that it has happened to me as well when I was learning it, for what it's worth. Okay, the second or the other thing I wanted to mention was there was a word used here, madhabs, which is an Arabic word. What would be the good English equivalent of that, Jessica?
Actually, I'll be honest and say I'm not entirely sure, because a lot of the stuff I read is probably just more written in English that I don't see. I wonder if an equivalent would be like scholar or experts, or
Okay.
do you think
Or
that would be a good
yeah, pretty good. Yeah. Or schools.
or schools? Okay.
Yeah, or schools or colleges that, these are parallel interpretations.
Okay.
Okay, so there was one other word here.
Intention.
Intention. Okay.
Yeah.
And then which to me is very similar to niyyah. Is that right?
Right. Exactly. It's your nia.
Okay. And then the last word, I think that was this one.
Recite.
Okay. Recite.
Recite.
So that's the first word of Quran as well, right? Ikra.
Yeah, that was the first revealed word.
Yeah, Ikra. Recite. Okay. All right. So let's see here. Let me highlight this so you can read this, Jessica.
Okay. The beginning dua of Salah was mentioned in a number of different hadith narrations and begins with Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika. According to Hanafi and Hanbali madhabs, it is sunnah to read this dua when opening your prayer. This dua should be recited immediately after Niyyah, which refers to a Muslim's intention to start the prayer. So, right after the takbir, i.e., raising your hands, saying Allahu Akbar, you could recite this dua.
Thank you. One quick point I wanted to add was commas.
Yeah, I think they're missing a comma.
Yeah, so in this last sentence, there is a comma after takbir. And usually there is a comma when it's in the, if there's a fragment in the middle of sentence, you start a comma for separation. So there should be a comma after Allahu Akbar.
Right.
And when you read, usually there's a short pause, the comma. Okay, so let's go back to Shazia. Do you want to finish this and read the last paragraph?
Yeah, sure. Just remember this dua is the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is not an mandatory act. Rather, it is something that is recommended to be recited. If you forget to recite the Subhanakallahumma dua, your salat is still valid and there's nothing wrong. Just don't go back to try and recite this dua as the proper timing has passed and it would be incorrect to redo.
We do. Okay. So in the words in here, there's again recite. So that is practice. I think the only word I noticed was this one.
Mhm.
How would you say that?
Oh, I think also opening was missed.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah, opening.
Okay.
Oh,
And then,
there was also an English rule I wanted to point out. Maybe they already know, but this website did make an error when it says it is not an mandatory act. The correct English there would actually be it is not a mandatory act. And typically a is used before any word that starts with a consonant, but if the next word starts with a vowel, then it's an. So if it's like if the next word had been opportunity, it would be an opportunity because opportunity starts with a vowel. I don't.
yeah, that's good. That's good. And the vowels are?
Oh, A, E, I, O, U.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have studied that part. The part that we have not studied is what are the words other than vowels. So let's see here. So A, E, I, O, U. These would be vowels, and they always precede with an.
Right. And I don't know if you guys talked about this, but an is, I guess it would be considered an article.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, we have. So what we have not talked about is everything else. So B, C, D, or everything else that
Yeah.
is.
I was like, are you gonna write out the whole alphabet?
Yeah. See you tomorrow.
Yeah. See you
Not.
tomorrow.
Yeah. So everything that is not a vowel. So this is what we have not studied. Is called a consonant. Okay, because the plural, there's S at the end, as Jessica was saying earlier. So we need to make sure we enunciate that. So everything else is called a consonant. Okay, so back to, okay. And one more thing that I mentioned is that this website has another issue with a comma here as well, but we have not studied commas so much, so we will just kind of let that be. So, okay, so the second word here to correct was this one.
Incorrect.
Okay, very good. And then the last word was?
Oh, was there any other word for me to read aside
Yeah,
from
yeah.
incorrect?
Yeah, the last word actually.
Oh, the very last word of this is redo.
Redo. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Very good. So, do you want to read the whole paragraph, Jessica?
Sure. Oh, did Abrar have a question or?
Yes, sir. The word
Go ahead.
will
Go ahead.
be salat or shalat.
I don't know. Jessica, do you know?
Every time I see it written, it's salat or salah. I don't think I've ever seen it written shalat, but I will admit there's a lot of Arabic I don't know, so it might be a word I don't know.
So I tell the students all the time that I have hard time commenting on religion because I'm a student myself.
Hmm.
And a lot of these Arabic words that's the second complexity, that we know them as second language, Arabic students. So it's hard for me to say what's the right word.
Right, and since I'm a new Muslim and I'm studying as well, sometimes there are things I haven't seen before and I don't know about.
Well, one thing that adds complexity is that usually when there is ta at the end, it could be silent.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So again, I don't know all the rules, but some, it's like there's certain French words which are spelled differently if they are at the end versus if there's vowel in front of them and so on. So there are some rules about that. So sometimes salat, there's ta at the end, and people will just say salah, and they will just not say the t.
Your salah.
Your salah. So again, that's what I have heard. I'm not, don't take my information as on face value. Just make sure you confirm it. So let's read the paragraph.
Okay. Just remember this opening dua is the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It is not a mandatory act. Rather, it is something that is recommended to be recited. If you forget to recite the Subhanaka Allahumma dua, your salah is still valid and there's nothing wrong. Just don't go back to try and recite this dua, as the proper timing has passed and it would be incorrect to redo.
Perfect. Okay, so that's where the dua ends. Any questions about that? Or any words there? Okay, so the next thing that we do after the dua usually is we read, we say, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Okay, that is something that I was thinking about last night, that, okay, what else we say in the prayer so we can cover these things. This is something I just thought of last night, so you guys haven't had the chance to read it. So, Sania, do you want to try reading this? Sania.
Yes, sir, I will try.
Okay.
A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. You may have heard A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, an Arabic phrase which is recited by Muslims daily. In reading Quran, we often begin by saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In reading Salat, before recitation of Surah Fatiha, Muslims also begin by saying this phrase.
Okay, so just 1 second there. Any word here that you guys, that's new to you? Okay, so Jessica, do you want to read the paragraph?
Sure. You may have heard A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, an Arabic phrase which is recited by Muslims daily. In reading Quran, we often begin by saying A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In reading Salat before recitation of Surah Fatiha, Muslims also begin by saying this phrase.
Perfect. So one, I think, other thing that I noticed in terms of translation that in this is the word Muslims here.
Oh yeah, I noticed that too.
So they are using the word there's comma after M versus they mean to use it as a plural. So it has a different meaning when you have a comma, and that is called an apostrophe.
Apostrophe. Yeah.
Apostrophe. So what the word should be here is the one in the square. There should be no comma. We have not studied that, so I will not elaborate on that. Okay, so Sania, do you want to read the rest of this?
Yes, sir. What exactly is the meaning of Auz Billahi Minash Shaitanir Rajim? The meaning is I seek refuge in Allah from the outcast.
Mm-hmm.
Sir, love सही
Yeah, yeah.
नजर नहीं आ रहा.
Okay, 1 second.
Satan. Satan.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Yep, sir. ठीक. Outcast. Shaitan. Shaitan meaning Satan,
Mm-hmm.
devil or Iblis. Continuing with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim translates to in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Merciful. It is sunnah to say this phrase before beginning reading by chapter of the Quran, except Surah Tawbah. In Surah Nahl,
Mm-hmm.
Ayah 98, it says, so when you recite the Quran, first seek refuge in Allah from Satan, the expelled from his mercy. From this verse, reciting Auz Billah is important whether you are starting from the beginning of Surah or from the middle of a longer passage like Surah Baqarah.
Okay, very good. So a few words here that I noticed would be, start with this.
Refuge.
Huge, okay. And then there is the word here that you said correctly, and that's an Arabic word. How would you say that word, Jessica?
Shaitan.
Shaitan. But then in English, what would you say?
Satan.
Satan. Okay.
Yeah.
Same concept, right?
Right. Exact. Yeah. Exact same
and-
meaning.
Okay. So, and then the next word would be this here.
Translates.
Translates. Okay. Huge Satan. Okay, and then there was one more. I think there was the word any that was missed. Oh, here. I think that word was just oversight when Sania was reading it. So that word is any.
Right.
I'll take
Any.
full credit. Yeah, I'll take full credit reading this one. I feel very confident. Okay, so Jessica, you want to read this?
Sure. Does Sumer have a question though?
Yeah, Sumer, did you have a question?
Sir, I have a question that Iblis is a proper noun, sir. Then can I?
If it is a proper pronoun, then what?
Iblis is a proper noun. So can we start this with small letter? IBLIS.
Oh, that's a good question. Yes. If it's a proper noun, like a name, it should be capitalized. So you're correct. I think this website made a mistake in not capitalizing his name.
Yeah. So, in addition to that, there were few words that we capitalized. So you're absolutely right that
Yes.
I should be capitalized.
Yes.
For example, they capitalize shaitan in the
Right.
middle of the sentence. Sorry, at the end of the first sentence, and they capitalize S. So it seems to me that they are keeping the Arabic words capitalized, but not necessarily the English ones. But anyways, Iblis that I should be capital or uppercase rather
Yeah.
lowercase.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah. Good point. Maybe it's good
So-
this website has some mistakes, so it gives the kids an opportunity to
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. That
Yeah, no, I'm beginning to see it.
yeah. So I was feeling a little frustrated with the grammar mistakes, but I think it's also it's a there's opportunity in this that
Right.
that how do you correct this? So this versus this. So what Sumer pointed was that the website shows lower I. Should it be capital I? So
Yes,
yes,
capital.
it should be capital. The I for Iblis should be capitalized because it is a proper noun. Okay, so let's read this paragraph.
All right. So what
Sorry.
exactly is the meaning of A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim? The meaning is I seek refuge in Allah from the outcast shaitan. Shaitan meaning Satan, devil, or Iblis. Continuing with Bismillah Rahman Rahim translates to in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. It is sunnah to say this phrase before beginning reading any chapter of the Quran except Surah Tawbah. In Surah Nal, Ayah 98, it says, so when you recite the Quran, first seek refuge in Allah from Satan, the expelled from his mercy. From this verse, reciting A'udhu Billahi min, or I'm sorry, just reciting A'udhu Billah is important whether you're starting from the beginning of Surah or from the middle of a longer passage like Surah Baqarah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, so that was the second part that we do in the daily salah. And after that, we usually do Al-Fatiha. So this is the website you guys are familiar with, islamicstudies.info. Whenever I am on this website, I like to use the version 1. So you up top here, you guys can see the versions, V1, V2, V3. Because the V1 gives you it gives you translation along with word by word. So if I go to V2, for example, you see translation, you don't see word by word translation. Okay, so I'll go back to V1. So when I'm reading this, or when I'm learning it, I try to use this version. So I pick a few things. For example, the very first letter, Bismillah, B means in. So I have learned this by just looking at word by word translations, and it helps over time for me. So that's the version I usually use, and that's on the display here. So let's start with the first one, and the turn here is for Abrar. Abrar, do you want to read the Arabic, the translation, and then the paragraph right below it?
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The most merciful, the most gracious, Allah, in the name.
Okay.
In the name of Allah, the merciful, the compassionate.
Okay. And then do you want to read the?
Yes.
Sorry.
One of the many practices taught by Islam is that its followers should begin their activities in the name of God. This principle of consciously and earnestly followed will necessarily yield 3 beneficial results. First one will be able to restrain oneself from many misdeeds, since the habit of pronouncing the name of God is bound to make one wonder when about to commit some offense how such an act can be reconciled with the saying of God's holy name. Second, if a man pronounces the name of God before starting good and legitimate tasks, this act will ensure that both his starting point and his mental orientation are sound. Third, and this is the most important benefit, When a man begins something by pronouncing God's name, he will enjoy God's support and succor. God will bless his efforts and protect him from the machinations and temptation of Satan. For whenever man turns to God, God turns to him as well.
Okay, thank you. So a few words here that I noticed.
Oh, earnestly,
Honestly. Okay.
necessarily,
Necessarily. Necessarily. Okay.
restrain,
Restrain.
pronouncing,
Pronounce.
reconciled,
Reconcile. Okay.
legitimate, succor.
Okay. I don't know how to say that word actually. So
That yeah, I guess I think last week we did read the first three lines of this. It's okay to read it again. Just
yeah. So I think the reason we were rereading the other lines was so just we can start from the beginning and finish it.
right. So we
And
have
and
continuity.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, that's a good idea.
okay, and then there were still the same word again.
Satan.
Satan. Okay.
Yeah.
So okay. So do you want to read the whole paragraph now, Jessica?
Sure, sure. And I want to say Abrar just read, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to say Abrar he actually fixed something, so I wanted to compliment Abrar on that. On the website, they made a mistake by saying misdeed, and it should have been misdeeds. So that was good that Abrar fixed that. So good on you. Okay,
Okay.
so you're welcome. So let me start. In the name of Allah, the Merciful, the Compassionate. One of the many practices taught by Islam is that its followers should begin their activities in the name of God. This principle, if consciously and earnestly followed, will necessarily yield three beneficial results. First, one will be able to restrain oneself from many misdeeds, since the habit of pronouncing the name of God is bound to make one wonder, when about to commit some offense, how such an act can be reconciled with the saying of God's holy name. Second, if a man pronounces the name of God before starting good and legitimate tasks, this act will ensue that both his starting point and his mental orientation are sound. Third, and this is the most important benefit, when a man begins something by pronouncing God's name, he will enjoy God's support and succor. God will bless his efforts and protect him from the machinations and temptation of Satan. For whenever man turns to God, God turns to him as well.
Thank you. I'm going to just switch to V2 so students don't have to read the word by word
Sure.
translation. Okay, next is Shasib. Shasib, do you want to start the second ayah and let's read up to here. Go ahead.
As we
So
already explained,
first read the translation.
praise
Sorry. Go
praise
ahead.
be to Allah, the Lord of the entire universe. As we have already explained, the character of this surah is that of a prayer. The prayer begins with praise of the ones to whom our prayer is addressed. This indicates that whenever one whenever one prays, one ought to pray in a dignified manner. It does not become a cultivated person to blurt over his petition. Refinement demands that our request should be proceed by a wholehearted acknowledgement of the unique position, infinite, infinite bene-
Benevolence.
benevolence, and unmerited excellence of the one to whom we pray. Whenever we praise someone, we do so for two reasons.
Thank you. So let me just identify a few words.
Dignified.
Okay.
Acknowledgement.
Oh, sorry.
Cultivated.
Okay. And then
Blurt out.
blurt out. Okay, that means to say something quickly. जब जल्दी जल्दी आप कोई चीज मुंह से निकाल देते हैं. Okay.
Preceded.
Preceded. That means before something.
Mhm.
Okay. Preceded, and then I think I said this word, so let's do this again.
Benevolence.
Okay.
Unmatched.
Very good. Okay, and let's read. Okay. Jessica, do you want to read that?
Sure. As we have already explained, the character of the surah is that of a prayer. The prayer begins with praise of the one to whom our prayer is addressed. This indicates that whenever one prays, one ought to pray in a dignified manner. It does not become a cultivated person to blurt out his petition. Refinement demands that our requests should be preceded by a wholehearted acknowledgement of the unique position, infinite benevolence, and unmatched excellence of the one to whom we pray. Whenever we praise someone, we do so for two reasons.
Okay, so let's read that. I'm trying to find a second here.
Oh, yeah, seconds after the first sentence you highlighted.
Oh, that's right away. So might as well
Right
just
after it.
Yeah. So I was thinking we'll do a shorter section, but we might as well just finish the whole translation here. Let me see. Next person is still on here. Wakas.
First because excellence calls for praise.
Keep reading. You have to just finish the whole thing. No, I think we lost him.
Oh,
So
Muzamil has raised his hand. Oh, there's Wakas.
oh, 1 second. Okay, is that better?
Yes, sir. First, because excellence calls for praise, irrespective of whether that excellence has any direct relevance to us or not. Second, the praise one who we consider to be our benefactor. When this is the case, our praise arises from a deep feeling of gratitude. God is worthy of praise on both counts. It is incumbent on us to praise Him not only in recognition of His infinite excellence, but also because of our feeling of gratitude to Him, arising from our awareness of the blessing He has lavished upon us. It is important to note that what is said here is not merely that praise to be God, but that all praise to be to God alone. Whenever there is any beauty, any excellence, any perfection in whatever thing or in whatever shape it may manifest itself, its ultimate source is none other than God Himself. No human being, angels, demigods, heavenly bodies, in short, no created beings are possessed of an innate excellence. Where excellence exists, it is a gift from God. Thus, if there is anyone at all whom we ought to adore and worship, to whom we ought to feel indebted and grateful, towards whom we should remain humble and obedient, it is creator of excellence rather than its possessor. In Arabic, the word Rabb has three meanings: Lord and Master, sustainer, provider, supporter, nourisher, and guardian, and sovereign ruler, he who controls and directs. God is the Rabb of the universe in all three meanings of the term.
That was a long passage to read.
Indeed.
Yeah, I would be tired. So anyway, okay, let's use a few words here.
Irrespective.
Irrespective. Okay. Sorry.
Factor.
Okay.
Praise on both counts.
Very good.
Arising from our awareness.
And there was the word indebted somewhere.
Oh yeah. Let me see. It's in the second to last line. Anyone at all to whom we ought to adore and worship, to whom we ought to feel indebted.
Indebted. So B
Yeah.
is silent.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right. So Jessica, you want to read this?
Sure. First, because excellence calls for praise, irrespective of whether that excellence has any direct relevance to us or not. Second, because we praise one who we consider to be our benefactor. When this is the case, our praise arises from a deep feeling of gratitude. God is worthy of praise on both counts. It is incumbent on us to praise Him not only in recognition of His infinite excellence, but also because of our feeling of gratitude to Him, arising from our awareness of the blessings He has lavished upon us. It is important to note that what is said here is not merely that praise be to God, but that all praise be to God alone. Whether there is any beauty, any excellence, any perfection in whatever or in whatever shape it may manifest itself, its ultimate source is none other than God Himself. No human beings, angels, demigods, heavenly bodies, in short, no created beings are possessed of an innate excellence. Where excellence exists, it is a gift from God. Thus, if there is anyone at all whom we ought to adore, to whom we ought to feel indebted and grateful, towards whom we should remain humble and obedient, it is the creator of excellence rather than its possessor. In Arabic, the word Rab has three meanings. 1, Lord and Master. 2, Sustainer, Provider, Supporter, Nourisher, and Guardian. And 3, Sovereign Ruler, He who controls and directs. God is the Rabb of the universe in all 3 meanings of the term.
Any questions there? Okay. So let's do ayah number 3, Muzammal.
Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, the merciful, the compassionate. Whenever we are deeply impressed by the greatness of something, we try to express our feelings by using superlatives. If the use of one superlative does not do full justice to our feelings, we tend to re-emphasize the extraordinary excellence of the object of our admiration by adding a second superlative of nearly equivalent meaning. This would seem to explain the use of the word Rahim following Rahman. The form of the word Rahman connotes intensity, yet God's mercy and beneficence towards His creatures is go great, so extensive and of such an infinite nature that no one word, however strong is connotation, can do it full justice. The epithet Rahim was therefore added to that of Rahman.
Okay. Thank you. So a few difficult words here. Let's start with this one.
Superlatives.
Superlatives. Okay. Then
Extraordinary.
and then together.
Extraordinary excellence.
Okay.
Equivalent.
Okay.
Connotes. Beneficence. That's actually a word that people in English don't use very much, so even I struggle with saying it. But I will say, in many English words, there's different parts to it, and in this word, there's the part bene, and it comes from Latin, which means good. So when you have a word like beneficence or benefactor or benevolent, it all means good because of that root bene in it.
So bene, B-E-N-E.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Okay, and then
Connotation.
so we just read the verb connote up top, and now there is a connotation. It's based on
Right.
the verb. Okay, and then a word here.
Epithet. Another word that a lot of English speakers don't normally use. It's one of those higher level words.
Yeah. Okay, so let's read the whole
Okay.
para.
Let me just have a sip of water here. Okay. The merciful, the compassionate. Whenever we are deeply impressed by the greatness of something, we try to express our feelings by using superlatives. If the use of one superlative does not do full justice to our feelings, we tend to re-emphasize the extraordinary excellence of the object of our admiration by adding a second superlative of nearly equivalent meaning. This would seem to explain the use of the word Rahim followed by Rahman. The form of the word Rahman connotes intensity, yet God's mercy and beneficence towards his creatures is so great, so extensive, and of such an infinite nature that no one word, however strong its connotation, can do it full justice. The epithet Rahim was therefore added to that of Rahman.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have time to read one more. And that would also be our last person, Sumer.
Yes, sir. I'm here.
Okay. So ayah 4.
Sir, can you zoom in?
Yeah, 1 second. So Jessica, a lot of students are looking at it from their phone screen, so it's because not everybody has access to a laptop.
I see.
Maliki Yawmiddin, the master of the day of recompense. God will be the Lord. God will be the Lord of day when all the generation of mankind gather together on order to render an account of the conduct, and when each person will be finally rewarded or punished for his deeds. The description of God as Lord of the Day of Judgment, following the mention of His benevolence and compassion, indicates that we are to remember another aspect of God as well, namely, that He will judge us all, and He is also absolutely powerful, that on the day of judgment, no one will have the power either to resist the enforcement of punishment that He decrees or to prevent anyone from receiving the reward that he decided to confer. Hence, we ought not only to love him for nourishing and sustaining us and for his compassion and mercy toward us, but should also be but should also hold him in awe because of his justice, and should not forget that our ultimate happiness and misery rests completely with him.
Thank you, Sumer. So Jessica, Sumer is linguistics students.
Oh, excellent.
Because most of the students are from the agriculture heartland. They're usually studying agriculture. Sumer is studying linguistics and language. I think he did a pretty good job. There were a few words that he mixed up or he skipped. So in the interest of time, maybe you should just read the whole thing again, or do you think there are a few words we should identify?
I'll just read the whole thing if we're short on time. Okay, so the master of the day of recompense, in English people also call it the day of judgment. God will be the Lord of the day when all generations of mankind gather together on order to render an account of their conduct, and when each person will be finally rewarded or punished for his deeds. The description of God as Lord of the Day of Judgment, following the mention of his benevolence and compassion, indicates that we ought to remember another aspect of God as well, namely, that he will judge us all, and he is so absolutely powerful that on the day of judgment, no one will have the power either to resist the enforcement of punishments that he decrees or to prevent anyone from receiving the rewards that he decides to confer. Hence, we ought not only to love him for nourishing and sustaining us for his compassion and mercy towards us, but should also hold him in awe because of his justice, and should not forget that our ultimate happiness or misery rests completely with him.
Great, thank you. One thing that Jessica added was the word for recompense. So as Jessica said, that is a higher level word. Not a lot of people use that in day-to-day language or sermons. The equivalent word is the day of recompense, day of judgment. Okay, so in a lot of times, you guys have dictionaries. We purchased everybody a dictionary, Jessica, so they can limit their Googling.
Nice. Yeah, sometimes Googling gets you in trouble.
Yeah, well, at least for me, it's more trouble than benefit.
Yeah.
So anyways, so, you guys can, sorry, to judgment, I was just trying to figure out if there's E after judgment, after D in judgment. Sorry, after G. I misspoke it and misspelled it. So according to the dictionary, there is E after G. Okay. And okay, so that's something that you guys know, that try to find equivalent meanings in English. We're almost at the end of the hour. We'll stop here. Any questions anybody has?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Okay. And Jessica, anything you want to add?
Yeah, one thing I also wanted to point out, I don't know if you guys talked about this already, but some people may have noticed when it says him or he or his, they're all capitalized, and some people may wonder, is this a mistake? But in English, we capitalize, when we're talking about God, we capitalize the pronoun him, his, he, to show that it's talking about God. But whenever that pronoun refers to anybody else, it's always lowercase if it's not at the beginning of a sentence. I don't know if it's the same thing in Urdu, or if you guys have talked about this English principle, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Good, very good. Yeah, we have actually, I have not pointed that out. We have not talked about it yet. So this is very good to see that in practice.
Yes.
And this is the same thing that earlier we were talking about, that, hey, what do we, which nouns do we use the uppercase for? But here we are using the pronoun, and the pronoun has the uppercase. So let's say if I'm referring to Waqas, I can, in the middle of sentence, I will just use he.
Right.
But if I'm referring to Allah, I will always use capital H.
Yes.
Okay. Anything for God, his, him. So I'll always use a capital H. It doesn't matter beginning or middle of the sentence.
Yeah.
Okay. So next Friday, we will finish this, and then probably we can go to Surah 114.
Good. Cool. Sounds great.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, Jessica.
Yeah, it's good seeing you all again. I hope you all have a good Juma day, Juma Mubarak, and I hope you have a good weekend.